Hi everybody, welcome back. Today we are going to be discussing chapter 1 from Lord of the Flies. And after we discuss chapter 1, I'm going to give you some things to think about as you read chapter 2. Okay, so I prepared a little PowerPoint with some ideas in it that we can use for discussion. So Kylie, why don't you come on around so we can look at the PowerPoint as we go. All right, so chapter 1 discussion. Okay, first thing I was hoping that you would pick up on while we were reading is when the description and a little bit of foreshadowing in that description, like the negative connotation with some of the way that the island is described. So there are lots of thorns and twigs and creepers and broken trunks being described from the very beginning. So thorns, obviously they hurt you. Twigs are like annoying. Creepers, just the sound of that sounds ominous, like it's bad, and it's thick and it's green and there's all this stuff they have to get through. Then at another point there is a red and yellow bird that has a witch-like cry. So when you think of a yellow and red bird, I'm hoping you're thinking back to the cover of the book and the fire that's on there. That's the color of fire, which is dangerous and will burn and kill you, right? Then the idea of the witch-like cry, not good. Witches are bad. The sound of things crying like that, bad news. The last little bit of foreshadowing in the description that I picked up on was skull-like coconuts. Okay, so skull, you know, obviously like a dead person's skull. And to describe the coconuts in that manner, negative, right? So just from this description, you should be getting a feeling that it's not going to be a happy, beautiful island where everything is wonderful and rainbows and they're going to find treasure, right? It's going to be pretty bad. All right, so chapter 1 is called The Sound of the Shell, and there was a conch shell that was really important in the novel. We're going to get to that in a second. The first thing you should have picked up on is the theme of leadership, and it comes out right in the beginning of chapter 1. So we meet our three main characters who are all kind of vying to be leader. The first one that we meet is named Ralph. He's the fair-haired boy who's first described. The second person that we meet is a very fat boy with thick glasses, and he says that they called him Piggy, but he doesn't want anyone to call him Piggy. So what does Ralph do? He starts calling him Piggy, like right away. So the question here is, who stands out as a leader in this chapter? And why? Who would you vote to be chief? So we have those two boys at first being described, and then Piggy actually is the one who spies the conch shell and teaches Ralph how to blow through it. So Piggy is like our brains, but he doesn't have the stamina. Like his body is weak. He's fat. He has asthma. He has glasses. He has all these weaknesses, right, that make him less of a man, right? He can't blow into that shell to make the noise, but he can tell other people how to do it, right? So he tells Ralph how to do that. The boys start coming because they hear the sound, and that shell is really, really important, and it's very symbolic. We're going to get to that here more in a second. So once they blow that shell, we meet our third boy who is like vying for attention to be our leader, and his name is Jack. So Jack is the commander-like person who's in charge of the choir. So whatever he says goes with the choir. They're all listening to him. He's almost like a little commander-in-chief, yelling out his orders at him. So we've got these three guys who are trying to be leader. Who stands out to you as a leader in this chapter and why? They each have different characteristics. So think about that. Who would you vote to be chief? All right, how do we see the uncivilized and unmannerly aspects of the boys taking over with their treatment of Piggy? How do you feel about Piggy? So pause now and think about how you would answer that question before we go over it. All right, so the boys are they're not nice. Oh, we have a visitor. The cat just jumped up there. So the boys are not very nice to Piggy, even though he is really essential to what they're doing. He is the one that saw the conch shell. He's the one that says we need to have a meeting. He is the one who is the brains behind this whole operation here. But they act like he is non-essential. They're mean to him. They won't let him come explore. They tell him to turn around. They give him menial tasks to do. Go find the boys and write down all their, figure out everybody's names, things like that. So we see that right from the get-go, that the boys are starting to order themselves and be uncivilized and unmannerly. So they're kind of showing us that even these innocent boys, right? That's the author's whole point, is that these are kind of natural characteristics which lie in all of us, right? So even in these boys who are just taking their cues from what they've seen in the world, they even have these ideas in them of order and who is on top of the leadership cycle there, and who deserves to be leader and who doesn't, and how they treat each other. So we're already starting to see some things breaking down. The question is it going to get worse than this as the story progresses? How do the boys try to establish order and society? Okay, so Ralph is elected the leader. They have a vote. Why do they choose Ralph? How does Jack respond? Jack, remember, he's in charge of the choir. And what tensions can we already foresee? Does Ralph show good leadership skills? So pause now and think about how you would answer that, and then we'll discuss. All right, so the boys choose Ralph simply because he's the one that was blowing into that conch shell, and it's making a trumpet-like sound, and they see this as a symbol of power. So a good quote that's in here: the children gave him the same simple obedience that they gave the men with the megaphones. So when they were in the regular world where there were adults and people had megaphones, they responded to that. It was like a symbol of power. So just from him blowing that conch shell, it gave this symbolism here that he is in control. He is the one that's in power. Well, what's ironic about that is he wouldn't have known to do it if it hadn't been for Piggy. Right? Piggy's the one who told him about the noise it would make and had to instruct him in how to blow to make the noise. Right? But the boys see Piggy as being less of a leader. They see him as weak, whereas the conch shell is what made Ralph powerful. The boys elect Ralph, and you can kind of see some tension in there with Jack, because the choir boys were all under Jack's control. So it makes us think about how they feel about being controlled by Jack, right? They seem to be like they don't want him, like they're sick of him being in power and being in control of them. So when they get the chance to vote for Ralph in, Ralph gets voted in. Then at the end of the novel, the boys go exploring. They kind of split up, and they decide who's gonna have what task to do. And so Piggy has to stay back. They won't let him come. They go and they are exploring to see if it is really an island or not. So as they are checking out the land, the lay of the land, and trying to see what's going on, there's a lot of description in there about what the island looks like. They get to a point where they run into a baby pig, and Jack has a knife, and he's about to kill this pig. He has this knife. He pulls the knife high in the air. He's about to bring it down and stab the pig, but he can't do it. And then the pig gets away, and then the boys are all mad about it. Like, what happened? Why'd you do that? Then they talk about how you have to spill the blood of the pig. Have you ever heard the phrase, like, I bled like a stuck pig? So pigs bleed a lot, and you have to let all their blood run out before you can process the meat. And they kind of bring that up in that chapter. So the question here is, why couldn't he bring himself to stab the pig? What are we seeing here? What's the author showing us? So he's a young boy. Then we're reminded again of their ages, right? He's a young boy. The idea of killing the pig and having food, providing food is a great idea. But does he have the stomach to actually kill the pig and have all the blood go everywhere, right? So why might the spilling of so much blood frighten the boys? Would the act of killing another living thing change Jack? How and why? Well, what's interesting here is a quote that comes after that incident. So he misses his chance to kill the pig. And then he says, next time there would be no mercy. He stabs his knife into a tree and says, next time there would be no mercy. So that's kind of ominous there. That makes us think, ooh, what does that mean? He's going to kill something? We get that feeling that he's going to kill something, maybe someone. He's going to use that knife coming up soon. So we kind of went over some of our main characters. We got Piggy, Ralph, and Jack. I'm asking you now to think about which one of these boys stands out with his confidence. Is it Piggy, Ralph, or Jack? You should have answered Ralph in this one. Ralph is the one with the conch shell. Ralph is the one that makes fun of Piggy, tells Piggy that he doesn't belong, like you stand back here. He's got that confident kind of swagger to him. He's good looking. He's described as having, let's see, I made some notes. There was a stillness about Ralph that marked him out. His size and his attractive appearance. Okay, all of those were things that were mentioned about Ralph. Next, which one is the brain? So which one of these guys, Piggy, Ralph, or Jack, is the one that is the brain of the operation, has the good ideas? Okay, if you answered Piggy, you are correct. He's got all the good ideas about what's going on, and then the other boys kind of act on those ideas because he doesn't have the physical prowess to do some of the things that need to be done. He's kind of weak in that area, but he's smart in the brain. All right, so which one is in control of the choir boys? That one is Jack. And we can already start to see some tension among these boys as they are like vying for leadership. Chapter 2. So we're getting ready to read chapter 2 now. And chapter 2 is called Fire on the Mountain. So you can assume there's going to be a fire. If they are the only ones on this deserted island, then how did the fire get started? That's what you should be thinking in your mind now before you start reading. While you're reading, I want you to think about these couple things. First is leadership style of the boys. Ralph, Piggy, Jack. How are we seeing their leadership styles evolve? That idea of who's the best leader and how their style is. That's something we're going to be looking at throughout. And that goes hand in hand with character development. How are they changing? How are the different crises that they're going through shaping them, and their response to those crises, or how is that shaping them as characters and as leaders? How does Ralph try to maintain order and a sense of society? Okay, so he's their elected leader, right? How does he try to maintain the sense of order, the sense of society, even as they're going through all these challenges? What happens at the end of the chapter that is particularly horrifying? So that will keep you reading to be like, did I get to the horrifying thing yet? Something horrifying is going to happen. And then something else you should be picking up on is friction between Jack and Ralph. So you want to be looking for that, like some foreshadowing. That's something that's going to be developing. So we'll see that start in chapter 2. Quick reminder about your packet instructions. So on your packet, you should have the date and pages read. That we said you're going to complete this in your daybook, or you're going to do this on paper. So you should have already completed that for chapter 1 now, and now we're moving on to chapter 2. So the date and the pages that you read, the summary of the major events, and then your personal reaction. Okay, then the during reading questions, you can choose 1 or 2 and respond. I've uploaded a handout on It's Learning that looks like this. So you have a choice here. You can do this handout, and this is asking you about who is your favorite character at this stage in the book. Give a quote about Ralph, a quote about Piggy, a quote about Jack. a quote about rules. So you can see rules are going to come up to be very important. List as many words as you can find which describe the fire. List any words you don't understand and write 5 questions related to the chapter about characters, story, language, themes, etc. that you would think would be good assessment questions if you were the teacher. Okay, so this is an option. You could do this, or you could go with the information that's in your packet. So the information that's in your packet, there's some during reading questions. Choose 1 or 2 to respond to. You can either do that, or if you want to go with this, you can print out this page from It's Learning and just put this in your daybook, tape it right in. So those are your options for Chapter 2. I hope that this was helpful, and I'll be back on. We'll discuss Chapter 2 next time, and then we will look at some things to look for in Chapter 3. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments, or you can email me. I hope everybody is doing okay. I know they made a couple more announcements today about food and drop off of food. So the school system is going to be providing 3 meals and a snack for anybody. And that's for anybody. It doesn't matter if you were on free or reduced lunch. They want to provide that. I know there's been some issues with trying to get items at the grocery store. Milk was sold out, bread was sold out, meat was sold out. There's a lot of issues. So they are providing that, and all that information is available online. So, or you could drop me an email or send me something on Remind if you need that information. I'll make sure I get it to you. Okay, I hope everyone's doing great. Stay safe, and we'll talk about Chapter 2, and we'll look for what you need to look at for Chapter 3 tomorrow. Have a good night.